You are listening to the ReRACEables podcast. Hello and welcome back to the ReRACEables podcast. I am your host, Tom, joined tonight by Nicole and Lizzie.
Hello.
Hello.
We are here pre-show before episode 4, which I had to change on some of the recordings because I didn't realize the first episode was actually 2 episodes. So my apologies, but I tried to blend it in as best I could. The changes. We are here.
We do have haters.
Yeah, we got to make sure we get that right. People are...
There's haters commenting, so you better make it right.
Well, Lizzie, is that a thing? Like to have two-hour episode means it's 2 episodes?
I mean, I think with a show like this, yes. And I think it's common in the premiere or the finale. But just the structure of this show lends it to being 2 episodes as opposed to like a quote unquote extended episode.
Speaking of extended episodes, we are extending into the race 19 months into the future. And
what
the race...
segue.
Thank you. The race in the last episode was shut down, suspended, because the real time of the race was late February 2020, right as COVID-19 was about to change the world and put everybody into shutdown. So the race stops, and on the episode, we have a flash forward 19 months later. They're not in Scotland anymore. They're in Switzerland. And there's not 9 teams coming back, but only 5. And so we have Akbar and Sherry, Dusty and Ryan, Kayla and Raquel, Penn and Kim, and Lulu and Lala returning. But as only Phil can, he surprises us. And what does he surprise us with, Lizzie?
Some familiar faces.
Now, we thought this was going to go in a couple different directions, and I was proud of us to have actually dinged at least a bit of the conversation last ReRACEables podcast. But we were wrong. We didn't think that they would possibly bring back eliminated teams, but
they did.
Right, and the videos have surfaced this week, so there's no reason for us to predict and pretend like it didn't happen and we didn't find out. We have 2 teams returning. We have Arun and Natalia, which helps out some of our friends who aren't with us here for this pre-show tonight in their power rankings. Josh and Jeremy had them both number 1. And when Arun and Natalia went out, that was pretty devastating to their fun for the season that we did with the rankings. And Mike and Moe are getting a second chance at the race. Anyway, so they're back. I guess let's start here. Should the second chance people have had a second chance at all?
I don't think it would have been an option had all of the teams come back. You know, I think that if those 4 teams that were still in the race at the end of the last episode, if they had all come back, I don't think that these 2 eliminated teams would return. But because 4 teams didn't return, it kind of opened the gates. You can't just cut down the season like that. You kind of have to keep it so many episodes, you know? So I think it was a circumstantial swing in their fortune.
So Anthony and Spencer now coming back and also not eliminated. Same with Carl and Ray, Connie and Sam. And Isaiah and Taylor and Isaiah.
Taylor and Isaiah definitely don't come back, and I know that because they were my number 1.
Yeah, so that was the top. Those were the 4.
I mean, it stinks because you want to see it play out, be how we predicted, given that we are vested in this.
Definitely.
But given the alternative of what we were thinking, that they would bring back teams from previous seasons, I prefer the way that they are doing it, that they're bringing back eliminated teams. It just seems more fair than bringing in totally new people, new to this season, because they've already established maybe some alliances, maybe some rifts between them and, bringing in new people just seems unfair.
Yeah.
So I like that there's more consistency.
I agree. I think it's the right move. I think bringing back the two teams made sense. I assume that more information about the other 4 teams that didn't come back will surface. But I like that Arun and Natalia and Mike and Moe get a second chance at this because it does keep it consistent. You don't want to just throw some new people in there and give them leg 3, or I guess this would be leg 4 of the race out of nowhere. I like the consistency of it. And I think if COVID and sporting events in COVID or television in COVID or anything that the COVID challenge has done for us, consistency is something that I think is a value. And even in this fun reality TV competition, seeing the consistent people that we know and are vested in, like you said, Nicole, in this season is a good thing.
And imagine if Mike and Moe end up winning. They're not gonna, but if they do, that would be quite the plot twist.
Feet.
All love from us to you, Mike and Moe. But let's talk about the 4 that stayed out quickly. Taylor and Isaiah, Caro and Ray, Anthony and Spencer, Connie and Sam. Any theories before the news? I'm sure it'll come out if we haven't read it already and maybe we missed it, but any theories that we think will stand out why they didn't make it back?
I think one of them died.
That's horrible. I don't think that's true.
I think, look at the odds. So many people passed away from the coronavirus.
Not that many.
Let it be clear that we are not hoping we are hoping Lizzie.
No, of course not. I hope everyone is still alive and healthy and doing well and in the relationships that they entered the race in. I hope that for everybody. But
well, that's where the relationship key is, I think, numero uno of why Caro and Ray.
Well, Caro and Ray, we know they broke up pretty much. I mean, we don't know that, but we know that they weren't survive. Their relationship was on rocks to begin with.
Right. 19 months, long distance, COVID.
Yeah. It's not
that would have been, so I think we would all agree on that.
Although I would have loved to see a broken up couple try to win $1 million.
Absolutely.
That would have been great television.
We know that good TV.
I think another reason for teams not returning is probably anti-vaxxers. Yeah. They need to travel. I'm sure CBS had strict regulations of what they had to do, what hoops they had to jump through in order to return and be able to travel. And who knows what, we don't know yet if they are traveling from country to country or if they're staying within one country. But I'm sure that in order to do the race, they had to be vaccinated.
Seems that way.
That may have been a deal breaker for some teams.
As someone who works with TV and film, casting directors and production people, I can say with almost 100% certainty that is probably what happened. There are hardly any TV shows that allow you to even be cast if you're not vaccinated, and now if you're not boosted. So that I think, Nicole, you're spot on there. That's got to be it.
On cue.
Yeah. I understand it, but that must have been a tough decision for people, right? Yeah. Everybody is entitled to whatever their choices are, but if a choice of $1 million comes to your way and the race and racing for that, whew, that's a tough pass. That's for sure.
Or maybe people were just nervous to travel the world during a pandemic. Maybe they were vaccinated, but they were still anxious about it.
I'm glad you brought that up. We absolutely should have said that.
Yeah.
Or dead.
We won't know until
I'm going to miss those teams. I wanted to see all the original 11 finish it out and see where it all shook out. I hate to think that some people will live with not being able to actually finish or be eliminated. But some people did get eliminated, like we said, Arun and Natalia, Mike and Moe, and they are back. Now, my question is, as second chancers or like a redemption island type, to bring in a Survivor reference, is there a penalty? Is there a circumstance, like a speed bump, like an extra task that they're going to have to complete, or they have to place first or second? Something that, do you think there's something that they're going to have to do in order to kind of even get back in the race?
My gut instinct is no. I don't think so. I think having 19 months off and having survived the coronavirus and getting back to Switzerland, I think all of that is task enough. And so I think essentially they'll be starting the race over at this point. I would be surprised if they even had, the same start times. You know how they leave at different times as they came into the finish line. I would be very surprised if they even kept that. I think everyone's starting from a clean slate. The only commonality being that they were all on the same season, and from there, I think it's a refresh. I think it's a restart.
Yeah, that makes sense. It does. However, the competitor in me says, if I'm Kim and Penn, if I'm Akbar and Sherry, Lulu and Lala, Dusty and Ryan, Kayla and Raquel, and two people get it back, they're back in. I know 19 months. I know the insanity that I'm sure that was. I know that the fairness, absolutely, that it was, and all the challenges to probably get back to that starting line in Switzerland. But you got to beat somebody once in a race. It's hard enough. You got to beat them twice. That could be maybe a lot to ask, and not have you be eliminated at all and not make a mistake. So ultimately, they're back in. Happy for them. It's good to see them back. And then what about this? The last thing, do they learn from their mistakes? Do they climb up? Do they stick around for a couple legs? Or do we think,
Well, I think for sure Arun and Natalia will avoid anything music related no matter what.
I also think that they might stray away from helping people. Remember, Natalia kept that a theme throughout that episode. And they talked about it a few times. Had we not stayed to help this team, we could have gained that 5 minutes or whatever. So I think they are also probably going to be quite put off of helping other people unless they know for sure they will be helped in return at some point specific. I think they're going to be a lot more tactical about that. But I agree with you, Nicole. I don't think there's any singing and dancing in their future either.
But I hope there is.
so do I.
Yeah.
So do I.
Tom has been listening to Donald Where's Your Trousers on repeat.
I will say there's a possibility they spent the 19 months getting better at song and dance. We don't know what these teams did for the 19 months.
Maybe they practiced.
Maybe they're pros at it now. Who knows?
I think if you have that rare chance to learn from your mistakes, like they did, both teams, if you're Mike and Moe, you better read those damn clues and expect each task to be more than just slapping it on the wall, like they did the puzzle in London. And if you're Arun and Natalia, you better have warmed up those bagpipes and that singing voice and
Maybe
your
he
dancing
took
shoes.
Dance classes over COVID.
I wouldn't put it past the guy.
Maybe he learned an instrument.
I hope he did.
Maybe he took voice lessons.
Maybe he did, but probably he didn't. Okay, we're excited. This is going to be interesting to see all the different directions, the kind of COVID influence now going forward, and how the race pans out. Will they stay in one city? Will they go to many cities? Will there be masks, things like that? Will it take away from it? Will it not? Will we see other people? How much of that interaction with other people, transferring clues, interacting with the different people at a roadblock, at a detour, taxis. It's going to be interesting to see what the Amazing Race looks like post-COVID and kind of the more current situation we're in. But we'll pause there and we'll be back after episode 4. Stay with us. Welcome back on the ReRACEables podcast. We have just watched episode 4 of the Amazing Race season 33. And let's start out. What did we learn in this restart?
At least I didn't learn as much as I was hoping to. What I wanted to learn was why the teams didn't come back. I wanted to know why each team wasn't there. We had a lot of guesses, and I wanted to know if we were right or not. I guess I should respect their privacy and not coming back and doing whatever they want to do with their lives. But I won't. A part of me won't. And so, um, but it was really cool to have Mike and Moe and Arun and Natalia come back. It was cool to learn how people spent their time for the 19 months. I think we could tell some teams we learned sharpened skills that they weren't as keen on beforehand, and some teams we learned didn't do a darn thing, and see how they had spent the quarantine.
I think the big lesson of the episode was do not give up.
Yes.
I mean, Sherry, she seemingly took forever to finish that task. And she couldn't believe that she finished. I'm sure there were times she thought, I'm going to have to give up. And I know Akbar definitely was thinking, this is it. This decision blew the whole race for us after all this time, all this waiting, all this buildup. And no, they still were able to beat 2 teams. That's crazy.
I think we learned 2 things. Number one, communication in the race is still paramount post-COVID. You see that from Kim and Penn when they have their moment of challenge and adversity. They kind of regroup through their communication. And you see it from Dusty and Ryan from their moment of not switching and kind of trusting each other and talking through that. You see it from Raquel and Kayla coaching each other through the challenge of the detour. The second thing I think you learn is that doing the power rankings in season 33 and any season has merit, because we just saw 2 teams get another chance to come back into the race. And yes, we all do the power rankings different. I like to think of it more of 1,000 times you run it, and this is what it would probably shake out to be where you'd position yourself if you did it that many times. And we'll start here, kind of blend it in. Twice in the race, twice out first, Mike and Moe. Did they not learn anything? Are they just not cut out for it? Are they just not confident? What is it?
I mean, that didn't even seem like a challenging task.
The belt, the whole leg, really.
I mean, I think it reminded me as a speech therapist of a speech therapy activity that I might do with a group of 3rd graders, where you listen to the story and then you have to sequence the pictures that go with the story.
Oh my gosh.
And all they had to do was like nail it onto a belt. But I think they didn't get the right order. Like, do they have listening comprehension difficulties? I don't know.
They got the right order. They just had the belt turned like upside down. They didn't have the belt the right way.
I think they had a couple out of order though, if I remember.
It was inverse of what it needed to be, was my understanding. But I agree with you, Nicole. I don't know how or why that seemed to be so difficult for them. I guess the common theme between this failed challenge and the last failed challenge was lack of attention to detail. You need to pay attention. Look at the example, and they didn't do that either time.
I also think their downfall was panic, a lack of confidence, which kind of shocked me. I didn't see that confidence that we are police officers, we are capable, we are strong, we are together, we can do this. I saw them kind of yelling at each other a little bit. Maybe put all that aside. I think I saw the demons of what happened in the first time around come back and maybe bite them a little bit. And they finish last yet again. And it's devastating.
And no singing.
Yeah.
Not a note.
Their spirit was crushed.
That was a tough one to watch and see them just struggle and get eliminated again. 6th place, Arun and Natalia. Let's stay with the second chance teams. They don't come in last, but like Mike and Moe, kind of a lack of confidence. I saw
Well, at least
flaws.
they knew not to do the flag, not to do choreography. They learned from the previous mistake.
And not give people help. That was the other.
Yeah.
But it seems like the weakness of driving and navigating in a foreign place was exposed for them. And they end up finishing 6th, and they couldn't have been more happy. And I can't imagine feeling any different than they did.
Yeah. Well, they're going to have to get used to that because Phil said at the beginning there's going to be a lot more driving because they're trying to avoid public transportation as much as possible for like going forward. So I hope that they figure that out. It seems to be like a lack of communication, like a not listening to each other sort of thing, which I also think is interesting. I think they're confident in their abilities, like task-based abilities, but half of the success is being able to communicate well with your partner. So,
and maybe in a post-COVID adjustments of charter plane only, no public transportation, more self-driving. If your weakness is navigation, you're in these foreign places, different languages to read, different types of signage. If this is any indication of what's to come in the coming legs, not looking good for Arun and Natalia. Before we jump into what happened in the leg of the race, let's talk about COVID and the viewing experience in this now COVID world in the show, in the race. What did we notice? Did it take away anything from the viewing experience? Did it really have no play? What did you think?
I thought I would be seeing like everyone masked up at all times, but that was not the case. You know, they still didn't stop them from talking to locals to get directions.
We did see the masks in the trams. We did see towards the end Mike and Moe or Arun and Natalia masked up, like going and talking to, I think they were in like a chocolate shop, it looked like, or some little boutique store.
Yeah, I thought it would be like at all times everywhere, but that's not the case.
well, I also noticed the challenges that they had for the teams were all very socially distant. The first roadblock was outside, and they had a guide who I think was masked with each person, but you're outside, right? And then the 2 challenges, the flag challenges, there were 3 separate rooms. There were no more than 2 teams in each room, so everyone could be super spaced out. Again, and we're also, you know, going on the assumption that everyone involved is vaccinated, and I have to extend that belief to the like judges of the flag twirling, you know. So there's more than enough room in that big space, and they have everybody spaced out. So I also noticed that these were very socially distant challenges. So it was the type of challenge they have on The Amazing Race, but I think they probably adapted it so that they could be more socially distant and be a little bit safer, which I think is great because it didn't take away from the experience. It's just something that I noticed because we've all gone through the pandemic. And so before I don't think I would have noticed that, but now I'm like, that's probably why that happened, you know?
I agree. I don't think it took away from the viewing experience. I think if you drop somebody in who's never seen this and never experienced COVID and watched the show, maybe they would be saying, why does that person have a mask on in the tram? Maybe, but I don't think it really took away from the viewing experience. It did keep the leg of the race in one city, which we saw in London pre-COVID shutdown. So no real difference there. Ultimately, they're making it work. And that is 100% what I'm sure everybody in that moment of making the restart happen just wanted, just like the NBA did, just like other sports, just like I'm sure movie sets and TV programs, theater, schools, everybody just wanted to make sure that we could do it the best we could safely. And it looks like the Amazing Race achieved that. So let's start with the roadblock. So they had to take their first clue to a bus, which drove them up into the mountains in Switzerland, 8,000 feet. And the roadblock, who wants to take in the view, where you're clipped into this rope and the carabiners, and you have to kind of run along this unbelievably beautiful mountain and landscape all the way down it to the clue box and then all the way back up. I have to say, if I was running the race with you or with anybody,
You would do it.
I would be so all over this. This is like my dream roadblock.
Yeah.
You are in arguably the most beautiful place you could ever imagine being in. And from a viewing standpoint, it was spectacular, which again was one of the reasons I love the show, right? You get to see these little corners of the world that you don't ever get to see. I would have been all over this. I would have been running up and down that freaking mountain as best I could, sucking in the 8,000 foot thin air as best I could, probably sucking wind, but loving every second of it. I would have been all over it.
I would have too. And I think Josh could have probably done it, but I would have been so excited too, especially because, you know, you think about it and it's like, all it is like a if you're scared of heights, that's kind of the only, you know, hiccup there. And I'm not. And so I think I would have been all over it as well. So beautiful. When else are you going to go there? When else are you going to do that? Right.
But I think it also took physical ability. It wasn't just
Yeah.
fear of heights. It also took some hiking and climbing and high altitude and
But all spectacular. That would be worth the sweat. That would be worth sucking the wind. That was, and even for the people who didn't get to do it, you're up there. You took this amazing tram ride up there and you see as far as you can. And you get to see 6 countries, which keep that in the back of your mind. I think that might have some potential for a later,
maybe
what
like
6
a,
countries were there in that viewpoint?
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I was very nervous for Penn that he was going to break an ankle.
right.
I'm also just coming off an ankle sprain, so I'm very sensitive to it, but that's all I could think was, oh my God, his ankles.
He's also so tall. Like he does not have a low center of gravity. He's got such long legs. He's so I was also worried for him too. I was like, slow down.
And I know you mentioned it before, Nicole, but shout out to Sherry. If her mission was to inspire people in her community that you can go to places and you can accomplish things and go do amazing things, she could end the race right now, and she doesn't, but she could and have accomplished her goal. And kudos to her, and kudos to my man Akbar. Just, he keeps churning out these quotes that I just can't get enough of. He is just a walking, talking quote machine. It's amazing. I felt for him. I could only imagine the regret he felt in those moments of like letting down his wife. Like he should have done it. I totally would have felt that way if for some reason I was. No, that would never happen.
No.
I would have done the roadblock. There's no 2 ways about it. I'm glad that things worked out for them, and credit to, again, their relationship, their communication, and knowing their role in their relationship. And they were able to make their huge comeback. They had to be at least what, a half hour, 45 minutes behind.
At least, yeah.
As he said, it's not over till the fat lady sings, and Phil says it's over. So credit to Akbar. It's not over for them. But the roadblock was over and it was on to another drive. Again, the adjustment in the race being they have to drive themselves in their car. This way they're away from as many people as possible in COVID time. But there's no stick shift. I was kind of surprised by that. They were kind of surprised by that. That was definitely something that they went home and freaking practiced. You know that's true.
Yes.
It's not always. I feel like a lot of times it is, but there's automatic cars in other places.
Yeah.
They'll get their chance.
Raquel wanted to show off.
She did.
She clearly practiced more.
Let's go on to the detour. It was punch it or toss it. Punch it was, as we've talked about a little bit, it was take a belt, kind of replicate a story with little medallions in the correct sequence. Again, they had a guy there to demonstrate the whole thing. That was Mike and Moe and Arun and Natalia's choice. Everybody else went to the toss it, which was like a flag line routine, where you had the Swiss flag and you had to copy what the dance routine was. Which one was better? Which one would we have gone with?
probably would have gone with the belt embellishment. Again, it's like a straightforward step by step. You either have it or you don't. There's always that risk with performance challenges where you just don't know kind of what mood that guy's going to be in, whether or not he's going to let you do it. Like I noticed some of the teams, their flag was like tossed up onto the pole and he was like, yeah, that's good. And I'm like, okay, so we're not looking for perfection here. You know what I mean? There's never that certainty. Whereas with the embellishment challenges, it's either correct or it's not. And I know that Josh, if I were to be running this race with him, would prefer that very much as well. Although this flag challenge didn't seem to be quite that difficult. So like hindsight, I maybe could have done that, but there's no way to ever know that, before you go do it. So I think the belt.
I agree, belt all the way. And like I said before, I felt like it was just simple, like a listening comprehension task combined with making a belt.
Yeah.
And just follow the directions.
I could see either one. I don't think there was one that was such a standout. I do, however, think that some teams made the right choice. Like there was a slam dunk choice for Arun and Natalia, right? They made the right choice going to the punch it, not going to the toss it routine. Mike and Moe, if I had to choose, were probably the only ones that maybe didn't. But after getting eliminated twice first and just struggling and showing such lack of confidence, and
I'd imagine the flags would have been even harder for them.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think they made the right choice, but they just ultimately didn't cut it.
The other major thing that came out of the detour was Dusty and Ryan's communication. As I said earlier, they didn't want to switch. I wonder what is it going to take for Dusty and Ryan to make a mistake here.
At some point they might get overconfident with their abilities to do things. I think when you see success, I think sometimes it goes to your head. And I think we've seen teams get so confident that they overlook small details, or maybe they don't read the clue all the way. And something that minor really can impact your game. Or if you're neck and neck with someone who is that close behind you, if Raquel and Kayla see, one small window of weakness in a team like Dusty and Ryan, they're gonna take it. They're gonna run with it, So I think Dusty and Ryan need to keep their heads level and their feet on the ground and not get ahead of themselves, and kind of run away with the success that they're seeing right now, because it could come back to bite them.
And there's always the external factors, like getting a flat tire, missing the tram by 1 second. You never know.
But you had them first. I had them third. I think and Lizzie, you had them what, top 4 or 5, if I remember?
They were the number 4 team, and if we're taking out the teams that didn't return, they're now my number 1.
I think they're everybody's number 1 at this point. I think it's their race to lose. If it comes down to a sprint, they're going to win. If it comes down to completing tasks and communication, they're right there with any of these teams. Like most male teams in the seasons we've done here, they are just stronger, and they're going all the way back to season 1 and 2, like Chris and Alex in season 2, Rob and Brennan in season 1. These are the strongest teams. Will and James, 32. There's a winning formula with these guys. And you even saw, like, did you see his calves? The guy's jacked. Ryan, he was in prison. What was he doing? Calf lifts for 10 years straight.
What else is he gonna do?
You guys, and Dusty too. 2 of them. Yeah. Like, did they just live in a gym? It's crazy.
That being said, I am shocked with how well Lulu and Lala are doing. I didn't think that they were going to be as good as they are. And while I do think that they're in the more like head above water category, as opposed to like power swimming, kind of like Dusty and Ryan are doing, they are definitely not the back end like I thought they were going to be. And so I'm excited to see them continuing to do well, because they're fun to watch too. So shout out to Lulu and Lala.
It kind of shook out how we expected, didn't it?
It is a little crazy that people are relatively where they were when the last time we started.
Yeah.
You know, there haven't been any shocking changes. It's all pretty much where we thought everyone was going to be. So that's a huge surprise. The lack of change, if anything.
And I think it's going to continue that way. I think if I had to power rank again, Dusty and Ryan would be my slam dunk number one. Kim and Penn, Raquel and Kayla would be 2, 3. Lulu and Lala, a strong 4, like you said, Lizzie. Very much not a sinking ship like Arun, Natalia, and, well, Mike and Moe. But it's going to come down to probably those 4. I think it's pretty safe to say.
I'm expecting a bunch more non-elimination legs sprinkled in to extend the season.
Yes, I think you're probably right. They have time slots to fill. So.
And that's only 4 episodes, right? So you only have now 6 teams and presumably 9 more episodes.
Yeah.
So we could see at least
3 more non-eliminations.
At least 3 more.
And that's fine.
It's
it makes
fine.
it exciting.
Yeah. If they're well placed, you know, when it's like neck and neck and like somehow Kim and Penn are in the back and they get a redemption shit, like, you know, I think if they're well placed and it's good, then it's going to be fun. I'm excited to see how it plays out.
The last thing about that, Akbar and Sherry, I loved seeing their reaction to their 5th place. They were just totally shocked. We were kind of shocked, I think, watching that they were able to make up all that time, validate Sherry's effort, not crush Akbar's spirit for not doing that roadblock. And I'm glad they're still in it. I enjoy watching them. I love their dynamic and watching them.
Me too.
We'll close out on this is we've mentioned our power rankings before, and what we are going to do, because the 4 teams didn't return, because 2 teams came back, we're going to
condense. We're going to scratch out the teams that did not return and consolidate. That way you won't get penalized for teams not coming back.
So if you had Anthony and Spencer as your number 1 team and Kim and Penn as your number 2, Kim and Penn will now become your number 1 because Anthony and Spencer didn't come back.
That seems like the fairest way of handling this situation. These unprecedented times in Amazing Race, ReRACEables podcast.
The Amazing Race makes some accommodations and adjustments. We're no different here on the ReRACEables podcast.
I said couldn't agree more.
Thank you for joining us. We will be back next week after episode 5. To listen to any other podcasts from this season or season 32, be sure to go to my website, tribalcouncilblog.com. Check us out
subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at tribal_council_blog. The blog has spoken. We'll see you next time.